Hey guys, DC here, coming at you with another video. Going into Pokemon Day 2024, the entire community was expecting to either get a Pokemon Black and White remake or a Pokemon Gold and Silver revisit. Neither of which happened, and in some cases people were expecting both. I was in that camp as well, because there were hints throughout 2023 that Johto and Unova were coming next, but that's neither here nor there. Neither of those two things happened. Instead, we got the announcement that Pokemon Legends ZA was going to come out in 2025, being a revisit to the Kalos region. And at that point in time, I was excited to be revisiting Kalos. I was excited to finally be getting the Pokemon Z that we never got back in 2015. We got it 10 years later. It took some time, but it was really fun. It was a really great game. DLC, not as great, but overall it was a fun experience. But why exactly did Pokemon skip over Unova? Why exactly did they skip over Black and White remakes or a Black and White revisit? It's kind of funny because I feel like for at least my generation, I feel like for people that I know personally, Black and White is often regarded upon, again, within my age range. I know this varies for every single age range. I feel like every single grouping of kids has their own generation that is the most hated upon them. But amongst my age group, amongst the people that I know, we all unanimously agree that Generation 5 is probably one of the weaker generations, if not the weakest generation in Pokemon. I know that probably comes as a hot take because Generation 5 probably has the best story in all of Pokemon, but it was the point in time where I and many of my friends fell out of the franchise and we really didn't like what they were doing at the time with Pokemon. We thought we were too cool and too old for Pokemon, and eventually, I did go back and revisit Black and White and I did enjoy those games, but they were my least favorite generation for a long time until Generation 8 came out. Generation 8 just has so many problems, Sword and Shield that is, that they are the worst Pokemon games in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. But I was actually really excited for a Black and White revisit. I was really excited for a Black and White remake because I felt like this was my opportunity to experience Unova in a way that I didn't experience it before, because when I went back and played through Black and White, it was at the point in which X and Y were coming out. I played through Black and White 2. I enjoyed those games. It was different. I was still a kid back then. Now as an adult, I wanted to see how I experienced and how I would appreciate that region today. But for whatever reason, Game Freak decided not to do a Black and White remake. They decided to jump straight into X and Y. And why exactly was that the case? This is, quite frankly, in my opinion, one of the bigger mysteries within the Pokemon franchise's history. There have been some pretty curious oddities throughout the run of Pokemon, and quite frankly, the biggest one outside of this is probably why Pokemon Z didn't happen, and maybe we'll revisit that topic in another video. But the fact of the matter is here that Black and White was one of the more deserving regions to get a remake. It obviously came out back in 2010 initially, and 2011 we got Black and White 2, and 2011 2012 respectively here in the US, but it's a game that hasn't seen the light of day in quite some time. Along with Johto, those are the two regions that have not been revisited in the longest amount of time, and seemingly from the Pokemon League, from the Terra League, there are no plans to revisit Unova at any time within this decade, which again is rather odd. Why exactly is it that Game Freak is deciding to skip over Black and White, to skip over Unova? I discussed in a recent video, and I'll leave a card up above to this, that they actually do mention Black and White in the Terra League, saying we have to put more care and effort into those remakes whenever we revisit them. And I just don't understand what they exactly mean by that, because I would argue that every Pokemon revisit or remake has had a lot of care and effort put into it. I'm not counting Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in that statement because those games were made by an outside studio in Ilka, but I just don't understand, like, even if Game Freak wanted to revisit Kalos next, right? And I like the fact that they decided to mix things up and skip the order, because one thing I've been telling my friend for years is I don't like how Game Freak has this set formula where we have to revisit these games in sequential order and we can't break that path at all. Like, literally, the remake cycle has been, we got Fire Red and Leaf Green, great, makes sense, right? Those were the first Pokemon games. We then obviously got Heart Gold and Soul Silver, then we got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, then we got Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl alongside Legends Arceus. Next up is going to be Pokemon Black 3 and White 3, or Pokemon Legends Unova, whatever they decide to do for Black and White remakes. But they decided to mix things up and do Pokemon Legends ZA, which is something that I remember during Generation 8. I was really saying this is the time to do a Kalos revisit. Why is it that we can't revisit Kalos until after Sinnoh, until after Unova. You can do things in whatever order you want. You own the franchise, and obviously we saw that come to pass with Pokemon Legends ZA taking precedent over a Black and White remake. But the one thing I really don't understand, and I feel like they should have done this, is say what you will about Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as many problems as that game has, as much as it feels like a DS game on Switch, it doesn't feel like a modern game because it's not. Let's be real, it's literally Diamond and Pearl as if they were made in 2021 or 2020, whatever year they came out in. They are one-for-one remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl with really nothing changed at all. For what those games are, yes, I don't like them as remakes. Yes, I think they should have done more with them. I think literally if they just added Mega Evolutions, that would have made the experience so much better. But they're a great way for people who didn't experience the original Diamond and Pearl to experience them today, because obviously you can't go back and buy Diamond and Pearl anymore. You can't go back and buy Platinum. Those games aren't sold anymore, nor can you buy a DS anymore, and those games are rather expensive to get your hands on. So for kids today who maybe weren't born yet when the original Diamond and Pearl came out, those games are great opportunities for them to experience not only the Sinnoh region, but what Pokemon was like back when we were kids, what these games were like when we were growing up. I have a friend of mine who didn't get into Pokemon until X and Y. I actually got him into the franchise because I kept talking to him when I first met him about how great Pokemon X and Y was, and eventually he decided to buy the game and he fell in love with the franchise. The only region he never got to experience was Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. He went back and bought Black and White. He went back and bought Heart Gold and Soul Silver. He played Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. He played Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but he never got the opportunity to go buy Diamond and Pearl or Platinum. So when Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out, that was his first opportunity to experience the Sinnoh region. What I'm trying to get at here is I think despite the flaws that those games have, I think they do have their place within the franchise, and I would love to see Game Freak do more traditional one-to-one remakes like that as a way to kind of get these quicker games out there for people who didn't experience those old regions, so we don't forget about those regions and those regions don't get lost in the fold, because at this point Pokemon is going to have 10 different regions. Next month we're going to get Generation 10 announced. They're not going to be able to highlight every region like they used to. It's just not going to be possible for them. So what I'm trying to get at here is I don't understand why Pokemon didn't partner with ILCA and either have them make a Black and White remake for 2024 or have them make a Heart Gold and Soul Silver one-to-one remake for 2024. I feel like that game would not have taken a lot of effort. It would not have taken a lot of time to develop. I mean, look at Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I would argue that maybe instead of the chibi art style we got in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, they should probably do like a half chibi style like we got in Pokemon X and Y. But either way, I just don't understand why they didn't do something like that, and quite frankly I don't understand why we haven't seen another ILCA styled remake. I know they founded Pokemon Works. Obviously we're going to get more from that company. They're working on Pokemon Champions as we know right now, but I'm quite frankly surprised that they haven't done more than that. I feel like it'd be logical for them to just come out with a one-to-one faithful remake of the original Black and White so people can experience that on their Switch and Switch 2. For those kids who weren't born when Pokemon Black and White first came out, they can experience the Unova region in a faithful one-to-one remake. And for those of us who maybe fell out of the franchise and never got to play the original Black and White, you could experience it for the first time. Or for someone like me or someone like you who have played the original Black and White and Black and White 2, you can re-experience those games in a modern 3D environment. But for some reason that hasn't happened, or at least hasn't happened yet. Who knows, maybe this surprised us on Pokemon Day announced that we are getting a faithful one-to-one Black and White remake coming this year in celebration of the franchise's 30th anniversary, but I don't think that's going to happen, at least not this year. I think we're going to get more faithful one-to-one remakes like that, but it's probably not going to be for at least a year or two, if not more than that. It'd be perfect really to tie in one of these faithful one-to-one remakes with a DLC year, like next year when we get the DLC for Pokemon Wind and Wave. It'd be great to see a faithful one-to-one remake go alongside that, although it's rumored that next year we're supposedly gonna get, and I'll believe this when I see it because I feel like this game's gonna get pushed back to 2028, but we're supposedly getting Pokemon Legends Galar next year, which that seems like a rather quick turnaround given that we just got Pokemon Legends ZA this past year. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. Why do you guys think that Pokemon skipped over Unova? Why did they skip over Black and White remakes? Was it because they just wanted to focus on making the Pokemon Z they never got to make? They wanted to capitalize on the popularity of Mega Evolutions? Or do they have a bigger, grander plan for Unova? Maybe that Black and White 3 game is coming sooner than we think. Who knows? Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from Trainer DC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.